Welcome to Explosive Enterprises. In previous videos, we've tried to address some of the common practical concerns we hear about gas airsoft guns, chiefly poor winter performance, frequent need for cleaning and maintenance, and leaky gas magazines. The last major point against gas guns is limited ammo count, and there are two sides to managing it: optimizing ammo load and minimizing ammo consumption. Today, we'll be covering both. So when I first started using gas rifles, I figured I should bring enough magazines to last a game, and I went with a typical US military combat load of 7 magazines. This proved sufficient for a few one-life rounds in a row, or a 15-minute game with respawns, but for outdoor rotations of an hour or more, it wasn't enough. I bring spare BBs and a stick speed loader, plus gas in my pack, but I found that in longer games, I often didn't have the opportunity to take a break and reload everything. So I started bringing more mags, as many as I could fit. At one point, I carried 9 30-round mags and 8 20-round mags, amounting to a combat load of 430 BBs, or about 1 high cap's worth. This was dumb. It was heavy, it was a lot of money in mags, and it was just a pain to manage both on and off the field. There's got to be a better way. Behold, the speed loader, and specifically, this is a 6mm Pro Shop one. This thing holds about 400 BBs, or about as many as that excessive pile of mags. It fits in any pouch that will accommodate a rifle magazine, or it'll fit in a BDU pocket if mag pouches are at a premium. And this $20 piece of plastic is the secret sauce that makes the low capacity of gas guns manageable. The next step is to use the right adapter. These speed loaders usually come with a pistol mag adapter, but I don't find it very useful. For some mags, just guiding the nozzle with my fingers is enough to reload the mag. For others, it may come with an adapter that can be paired with the speed loader to easily reload. And for the remainder, I am a big fan of Comrade Quiche speed loader adapters, which plug onto the top of the mag and make it a breeze to reload. There are also stick speed loaders, which often come with new guns, but as I alluded to before, I don't find these very useful. They're fine for reloading at a safe zone, but in the field it's just a lot of moving parts to manage. The best thing about the AEG speed loader is that I can just hold the mag in one hand and the speed loader in the other, and not have to fuss with swapping things around. This makes it possible to reload magazines whenever I have even a few seconds of downtime on the field. Now, if you really want to go all out, an Odin Sidewinder can be paired with a GBB specific adapter like this Cedar 3D VFC adapter, and this makes it very quick to fill up a mag. The downside is just that this is obviously quite bulky and may need a dedicated pouch, so it's a bit harder to deploy at a moment's notice. If you do use an Odin, just be sure to follow the instructions for adjusting the slip clutch so that it can fully load a mag, as gas mags are typically harder to load than AEG mags. So with the ability to reload easily on the field, my total ammo capacity is effectively however many BBs I'm willing to pack in my gear, and the number of mags only limits how many I can shoot at one time before needing to reload. For 15-minute CQB rounds, I might only bring 3 magazines, and if I find myself getting low, I can reload at respawn. For 30-minute outdoor games, I'm fine with 5 mags and a speed loader, but I'll typically do 7 so that I don't have to reload them as frequently. And for big multi-hour ops, I like to have a full combat load of 7 mags, and in addition to the speed loader, I bring a bag of BBs to refill it with. Now let's switch tracks and talk gas. Many players use 16-ounce camping propane tanks rather than expensive Airsoft branded cans, but we also suggest considering the 14-ounce propane bottles intended for propane torches. These have a skinnier, taller profile that takes up less lateral space on gear, typically have less odorant than camping bottles, and are much tougher than green gas cans, so safe to carry in a relatively exposed manner. They also fit neatly in MOLLE HPA bottle holders, making it easy to carry the tank on a belt and draw or put away the tank as needed. We use Madbull propane adapters, and have designed a protective cap to cover the fill needle, which we'll link in the description. Secure the cap to the bottle with paracord, and you're good to go. Putting it all together, here's a practical example of this approach in action. Our squad has been assigned to defend an objective for as long as possible. We have good cover, but so does the other team, and both sides have medics. Unsurprisingly, this situation rapidly devolves into the quintessential airsoft pissing match, where both sides shoot back and forth at maximum range, but nothing really happens. This sort of attrition match is about the worst case scenario for a gas rifle in terms of ammo management. But each time I get hit, I have the opportunity to reload a mag or 2 while waiting for the medic, offsetting the ammo I was able to shoot before getting hit. This fight lasted for about an hour before the other team gave up, and at no point did I completely run out of ammo. Limited capacity also means reloading the gun more frequently than with AGs. Now, there's plenty of YouTube content on gear setups and speed reloading rifles, and most of that translates directly, so we won't get too into the weeds, but there are 2 big differences between gas mags and real mags we want to highlight. For one thing, gas mags are heavy and don't get lighter as you shoot, and this can make retaining empties much more awkward than with real mags. This tactical tailored dump pouch is a good product, but it can only hold about 4 or 5 gas mags before it's in severe danger of losing them just due to how much it sags under the weight. This Condor dump pouch is, well, it's Condor, the champagne of sweatshop gear, but it has a stiffened opening that prevents it from sagging and is deep enough to carry my full combat load of mags without having to worry about them flopping out. Just dropping mags in the sack makes for a quicker reload, and I don't have to track which mags are empty as I would with reindexing. The other difference compared to real mags is that gas mags are much more susceptible to contamination. It only takes a little dirt or mud to get into the gun and cause problems, and even just wet magazines can spoil the hop if water gets into the BBs. So while flapped pouches may seem a little quaint nowadays, for outdoor games I find they're really nice for keeping the mags clean and safe, and I carry most of my mags this way. I then keep a single open-top pouch off to the side for speed reloads, and that covers my ammo requirements. Of course, I'm just some nerd cosplaying army man on the internet, so do some research and try out different setups to see what works for you. Or feel free to leave an angry comment about how this advice will get you killed in the streets, and link to an Instagram video of some gun bro doing flat range theatrics with a color filter. That's always cool too. Okay, so all that said, managing mags is only half of the equation. The other half is making hits with fewer shots, because if you shoot a gas gun like most players shoot AEGs, you're going to be reloading constantly and then out of ammo in about 10 minutes. So to get the most out of your limited capacity, there are a few aspects of raw shooting performance to cover. First, having an accurate gun is hugely important to minimizing ammo consumption. Many modern gas guns come with decent hops out of the box, but it's still not uncommon for them to be suboptimal, so if you find you're having trouble making hits, then it's worth experimenting. For guns that use an AEG style nub, we recommend trying either a Maple Leaf Wonder or Maple Leaf MR hop, 70 degree for both, paired with an Omega nub or equivalent. If either of these produces good accuracy but inconsistent amounts of hop, then we suggest trying a cylindrical nub, which will tend to chamber more consistently if that's an issue. For guns that don't use nubs and just have rigid hop arms, our current favorite is the Maple Leaf Wonder bucking, and if that doesn't work well, you can try the PDIW hold. Different guns will prefer different hop buckings, so unfortunately we can't make any guarantees about what will work best or what results to expect, but even buying 3 or 4 buckings to try is cheaper than a new inner barrel and has much greater impact. We also recommend using silicone-free green gas, also known as propane. Oiled gas is more common in airsoft, but it's entirely unnecessary, and getting oil in the hop-up and barrel compromises hop-up and attracts dust. We've sometimes heard players complain that gas guns don't have as much range as AEGs, but hot take, it's the oil spoiling the hop. Use oil-free green gas or hardware store propane, and a well-tuned GBB can be every bit as accurate as its AEG counterparts. And in fact, you can shoot farther than your average AEG player by using heavier BBs. We covered this pretty extensively in our Why You Should Be Using Heavy BBs video, but the gist of it is that heavy BBs provide an awful lot of advantages that translate into more hits at longer ranges, so if you're currently using anything lighter than a .3 for outdoor play, we highly recommend watching that video. And lastly, the single best way to reduce your ammo consumption is to aim. I know this is old hat for a lot of you guys, but for those coming to gas guns from the world of AEGs, getting in the habit of using your sights rather than relying on walking the BBs in will get you on target sooner and help you to shoot less for each kill. The biggest objection we hear to the use of sights is the fact that BBs don't behave like bullets. Well sure, they're less accurate, have significant travel time, and can be strongly affected by wind. But at short range, none of that matters. While at longer range, a sight provides a fixed reference point to maximize the chance of a hit on the first shot and facilitate quicker adjustment if it misses. It also allows you to make hits in environmental conditions where you can't actually see where the BBs are going, to stay on target in the peaking exchanges that typify medium-range engagements, or to take a player out before they even realize they're under fire. If you're not used to using your sights, it will feel slow and awkward at first, but when you can spot an exposed head, elbow, or foot and instantly zap it in 1 or 2 shots, airsofters treat you like a goddamn wizard. All this to say that while actually aiming is a force multiplier, in order to do that effectively you need decent sights. For the retro enthusiasts, irons can be viable, particularly with some minor tweaks. We find aperture sights can often be hard to pick up in a hurry, especially in low light conditions, so drilling them out slightly for easier acquisition helps. Other styles of rear sight can be improved with the addition of paint. For front sights, I'm a big fan of Blitzkrieg Components luminous sights, which are both highly visible and glow in the dark after being charged by ambient light. And for pistols, combination tritium fiber irons are highly visible in all lighting conditions. But from a purely practical standpoint, modern red dots are simply more effective than irons, requiring no alignment and simplifying the sight picture to a single dot in the same focal plane as the target, and we highly recommend red dots for airsoft use. Which red dot to buy, though, is a thorny subject. We understandably see a lot of airsoft optics used for airsoft, but many won't hold zero under the recoil impulse of a gas gun, and some will break outright. Beyond that bare minimum, most airsoft optics are not nearly as durable as their real counterparts, and optical quality varies considerably. This Repro RMR has a smeared dot, bad parallax, and significant glare on the glass. I used to have one with better glass, but it sheared its elevation adjustment under recoil, rendering it useless. This Repro Z-Point has a strong blue tint and had its electronics fail after one game, so it's now a paperweight. This Repro Seymour has decent glass and is actually the one Repro optic I still actually use, but the build quality is even more fragile than the real thing, and out of the box the brightness dial did not allow it to actually turn off. Some airsoft optics will work perfectly fine, but you're buying a visual replica first, a functional optic second, and a quality control crapshoot all around. Now, we are not saying that you need to buy a real EOTech or Aimpoint for your airsoft gun. Instead, look at budget real steel red dots. We recommend checking out the Sig Romeo 5, Holosun 403B, or Vector Scrapper in the $100 to $150 range, or the Sig Romeo MSR or Bushnell TRS 25 for sub $100, and all these are substantially better quality for only a modest increase in price. This Romeo 5 has clear glass, a crisp dot, shake awake, is more than tough enough for airsoft, comes with both a direct mount and lower third co-witness mount, and in the US can be had for less than $100 used. If you want just a simple, usable, reliable optic, this beats the crap out of airsoft clones. That said, I personally also use real Aimpoints and EOTechs, partly because used ones are cheaper than I think many airsofters expect, partly because there are no decent clones of certain models, and partly because, well, I just think they're neat. Practically speaking, this is overkill for airsoft, and that Romeo 5 does the job just fine, but one of the perks of real optics is that they retain value, so I can buy, use, and sell later without losing money, so it's not totally stupid. Just mostly stupid. Whatever you go with, we strongly recommend making an optic protector, something we've covered in a previous video, which we'll link in the description. And remember, friends don't let friends use plexiglass. Oh, and one more note, if you look through a red dot sight and you see a starburst or smear rather than a crisp dot, try taking a photo through the sight with your phone, focusing on something far away. If the dot looks as it should on the phone, you have astigmatism. Welcome to the club. There's no silver bullet fix short of a contact lens or glasses prescription that corrects for it, but I have found a few things that help. Circle dot reticles allow me to turn the power much lower while still being able to acquire the sight, and the reduced brightness reduces starbursting. As well, many people with astigmatism see less distortion with holographic sights like EOTechs, or prismatic sights like this Novus 1P87 clone or Vortex Spitfire. Just be aware that cheap airsoft repros are simply red dots and fancy housings and will not provide these benefits. Now, as for actually zeroing the optic, this is where things get interesting. On a real gun, you have a defined trajectory as the bullet drops, so you just align point of aim to point of impact at a particular distance, and you're done. With airsoft, though, we can control the trajectory through hop-up, and this leads to two different schools of thought. If you want to maximize range, we recommend first tuning the hop to just slightly over hop, which is most easily judged without looking down your sights, just tracking the BB. Once the trajectory is dialed in, align the dot or reticle to just below the highest point of the BB's travel. This gives a functional zero that keeps the point of impact fairly close to the point of aim all the way out to maximum range. You'll need to practice and get a feel for when you need to aim a little high or low to hit a small target, and note that the higher your optic is over the bore, the more deviation from point of aim you'll see. Alternatively, if you want pinpoint accuracy, closer distances, first tune the hop to throw the BB as flat as possible. Once that's tuned in, zero at around 100 feet and align point of aim to point of impact. With this setup, the BB won't go quite as far as the previous method, and it will require holdover beyond the zero distance, but within that distance, the point of impact will stay very close to point of aim. Overall, the lower ammo count of gas rifles can be overcome, it just may require some tinkering, a decent sight, and some playstyle adjustment. For me, the breakthrough moment was realizing that in a typical game, I'm not actually at a gameplay disadvantage. Most of the time, I'm going up against the average player's stock AEG filled with lightweight BBs, and from just a bit of hop work and using heavy BBs, I have advantages in accuracy, range, and consistency that are far more impactful than raw ammo count. When I do find myself engaging someone who has a decent gun and the skills to make use of it, typically one of us eliminates the other before we fire anywhere near enough shots for the ammo difference to matter.
Oh, nice!
Of course, you can sidestep reloading and refilling entirely by using an HPA or gas drum, but despite owning a couple, I actually only use them for full auto machine gunning. When I'm limited to semi-auto, I find that the bulk of a drum and the constant tether of the HPA line are more annoying than the extra ammo count is useful. And besides, half the fun of gas guns is the realistic manual of arms. Embrace the LARP. There are also a few advantages gas blowback rifles have over AAGs that I think don't get discussed as much as they should. A better trigger with a clean break helps with precision shooting, obvious lockback avoids that embarrassing situation of rounding a corner and dry firing, and just like HPA guns, FPS adjustment is free, which is to say that, unlike with AAGs, it doesn't have any impact on performance or durability. On that note, we highly recommend investing in an adjustable valve for whatever GBB system you use, because it allows for arbitrary control of FPS to account for field rules and ambient temperature. That said, BB weight matters more than FPS for most performance metrics, and going back to the ballistics video, a 1 joule gun using heavy BBs can actually outperform a 1.5 joule gun using light BBs. Higher power is nice to have, but it doesn't make nearly as much of a difference as airsofters tend to think, so don't get overly worked up about FPS. But all that theory aside, the most fundamentally important thing to having a good experience with gas blowback airsoft is to start with a good replica. Unlike AAGs, where you can start with a crappy gun and swap out all the internals as needed, gas guns are much more constrained, and some take so much money to fix that you might as well start with a better gun or may not be fixable at all. For ARs at least, our basic advice is to check out the Tokyo Marui MWS and VFC V3 systems, but we always recommend asking a knowledgeable community such as the Heavy Recoil Club for specific advice. Don't be that guy who buys a gun, then asks if it's any good and gets upset when he doesn't like the answer. Why are airsofters like this? Anyways, I know we briefly touched on a lot of different topics today, so let us know in the comments if there's anything you'd like to see further explanation on. As always, we hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.
Hit!